The woman waiting for my blind date looked up from her menu, stared at me for 2 full seconds, and said, "You've got to be kidding." Unfortunately, I recognized that voice. "Good evening, Mrs. Sloan." My best friend Derek stood beside the table wearing the satisfied grin of a man who had just thrown a match into a fireworks warehouse. At 25, I'd survived demanding clients, impossible deadlines, and one memorable presentation in which a projector overheated and filled the conference room with smoke. None of that prepared me for discovering that Derek's mysterious sister was Rebecca Sloan, the 27-year-old creative director at the marketing firm where I worked. My boss. Technically, Rebecca was my boss's boss, but she approved my projects, signed off on raises, and had once returned a campaign draft with the comment, "This feels like it was written by a committee of frightened accountants." I'd written the draft alone. "Okay," Derek said cheerfully. "You two clearly know each other." Rebecca slowly closed her menu. "Your friend is Mason Reed? And your sister is Rebecca Sloan?" I asked him. "They have different fathers," Derek explained, as if genetics were our main concern. "She uses her dad's last name. I use mom's." Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "You knew he worked at Landon Creative." "I knew he worked there. I didn't know you'd memorized him." Her gaze flicked to me. That small movement did something deeply unprofessional to my pulse. Rebecca looked different outside the office. Her dark hair, usually pinned into a practical twist, fell over one shoulder. She wore a deep green dress instead of one of her sharp gray suits. And without a conference table between us, I noticed things I'd trained myself not to notice at work. The warmth in her brown eyes, the small silver ring on her thumb, the way she pressed her lips together when she was trying not to laugh. And she was definitely trying not to laugh. "I haven't memorized him," she said. "You called him Mason before he introduced himself." "I employ him." "Indirectly," I said. Rebecca raised one eyebrow. "Would you like to debate the organizational chart on our date?" "Our date." The words landed with more force than they should have. Derek clapped me on the shoulder. "Great, you're already arguing. That's basically chemistry for emotionally repressed professionals." "Leave," Rebecca and I said together. Derek pointed between us. "See?" Then he left. He actually left. I watched him walk out of the restaurant wondering whether friendship gave me the legal right to flatten his tires. When I turned back, Rebecca was studying me. "You can go too," she said. "That sounds less like permission and more like a performance review." Her mouth curved. "You make jokes when you're nervous. You tap your thumb against your glass when you're nervous." Her hand immediately stilled. For one reckless second, neither of us looked away. At work, Rebecca had a way of making silence feel like a question you should have prepared for. Here, beneath the amber lights of a small Italian restaurant, the same silence felt entirely different. Closer. "I didn't know," I said. "Derek said his sister was smart, funny, and terrifyingly judgmental about coffee. That description covers half of management." She laughed then, not the polite office laugh I'd heard during client dinners, but a surprised, unguarded one. It changed her whole face. And that was the precise moment leaving stopped being an option. Rebecca glanced toward the door. "He told me you were stubborn, decent, and incapable of buying a shirt that fits properly." I looked down at my shirt. "This fits." "The buttons disagree." I pulled out the chair across from her. "So Derek has betrayed us both." "Apparently. Do we reward him by having dinner or punish him by making this so uncomfortable that he feels guilty?" "My brother hasn't felt guilt since 2009. "What happened in 2009? "He broke my nose with a basketball and blamed the wind." I sat down. "Dinner it is." She watched me settle into the chair. "You're really staying?" "If you want me to." That softened something in her expression. "I do," she said. No teasing, no executive tone. Just an answer. The waiter appeared, saving both of us from reacting too honestly. We ordered pasta and agreed on a bottle of wine, though Rebecca insisted we each have only one glass because, as she put it, one of us signs the other's expense reports. And here I was planning to embezzle the tiramisu. I knew you had ambition. The first 10 minutes were awkward. The next 10 were unexpectedly easy. I learned she hated networking events but loved old hardware stores. She learned I spent Saturday mornings repairing furniture in my grandfather's garage. She admitted she'd once pretended to understand baseball for an entire relationship. I admitted I'd once taken ballroom dancing lessons because my mother refused to let me embarrass her at my cousin's wedding. You can dance? She asked. Legally, yes. Artistically, the jury's still out. She leaned closer over the table. That might be useful information. For what? Rebecca's eyes held mine. I haven't decided yet. There it was, not quite flirting, but close enough that I forgot what I'd been about to say. At work, I admired her because she was good at her job. She never took credit for someone else's idea, never humiliated people for making mistakes, and could turn a chaotic client meeting around with one calm sentence. Sitting across from her, I was attracted to the woman who stole mushrooms from my plate after claiming she didn't like them. The woman who laughed with her whole shoulders. The woman who listened as if my answers mattered instead of simply waiting to speak. You're different here, I said. Her smile faded slightly. Better or worse? Less armored. The air shifted. I could have made another joke. Normally I would have. But something in her expression asked me not to. Rebecca looked down at the table. Being young in my position means people wait for proof that I don't belong there, so I try not to give them any. I've never thought you didn't belong. I know. She looked up again. That's one of the things I like about you. My heart made a sincere attempt to resign from my body. One of the things? I said too much. I strongly disagree. She smiled, but the color rising in her cheeks was real. Dinner stretched past dessert. When we finally stepped outside, rain had turned the pavement glossy beneath the streetlights. We stood under the restaurant awning, too close to pretend we weren't aware of it. Rebecca folded her arms against the cool air. This is where we're supposed to agree it was a mistake. Was it? No. Then that seems dishonest. She looked toward the rain. I'm still above you at work, Mason. I'm aware. You have a larger office and significantly better coffee. I'm serious. So am I. Her gaze came back to mine. If Derek had told you who I was, would you have come? The safe answer was no. The responsible answer was that workplace boundaries mattered, gossip spread fast, and neither of us should risk our professional reputation over one surprisingly perfect dinner. Instead, I told her the truth. Yes. Rebecca inhaled slowly. Then she stepped closer, reached up, and straightened the collar of my supposedly ill-fitting shirt. Her fingers brushed my neck, and neither of us moved for a second. I would have come too, she said quietly. A cab pulled up at the curb, its headlights washing over us. Rebecca dropped her hand, but the warmth of her touch stayed behind. Before she opened the door, she turned to me. There's something you need to know before Monday. The softness in her face disappeared, replaced by the composed expression I knew from the office. I was going to announce it next week, she said. The executive team approved your promotion. I should have been thrilled. I'd worked toward that promotion for nearly 2 years. Then she finished. The new position reports directly to me. The new position reports directly to me. The rain seemed to grow louder. Rebecca stood with one hand on the cab door, waiting for me to say something. I should have congratulated myself. Instead, I stared at the woman I wanted to kiss and pictured an employee handbook slamming shut between us. When was the decision made? I asked. Thursday. I recommended you 3 weeks ago. Before tonight. Long before tonight. Her expression tightened. You earned this, Mason. I don't want you wondering whether dinner had anything to do with it. I don't. Other people might. That was the problem with offices. The truth mattered less than the version people enjoyed repeating. I stepped beneath the edge of the awning as wind drove rain toward us. Are you asking me to turn it down? No. Her answer was immediate. Absolutely not. Then what are you asking? Rebecca looked at me for a long moment. I'm asking you not to make any decisions tonight. Before I could respond, she climbed into the cab. I caught the top of the door. Does that include deciding whether I want to see you again? Her gaze lifted to mine. You shouldn't, she said softly. That wasn't my question. The cab driver glanced at us in the mirror with the weary patience of a man who'd watched hundreds of people mishandle their love lives. Rebecca's professional composure slipped. Just for a second, she looked frustrated, uncertain, and every bit as unwilling to end the night as I was. Yes, she said. It includes that. Then she pulled the door closed. By Monday morning, Rebecca Sloan was my boss again. Her hair was pinned up. Her gray suit had returned. When she entered the conference room, she acknowledged me with the same brief nod she gave everyone else. Not a single person would have guessed I knew she'd broken her nose at 14, or that she scraped the mushrooms off her pasta when she thought no one was looking. I hated how much I missed the woman in the green dress. Our division president announced my promotion at 9:30. Starting next month, Mason will lead the Calder account as associate creative director. My coworkers applauded. I thanked them, said the appropriately humble things, and tried not to look at Rebecca. I failed. She was watching me from the far end of the table. Her smile was restrained but genuine. Congratulations, Mr. Reed, she said. Thank you, Miss Sloan. The formality felt almost intimate after Saturday. Almost. An hour later, an envelope appeared on my desk. Inside was the official offer and a handwritten note. You earned every line of this. Don't let Saturday diminish it. I read it twice, then slipped it into my jacket. At noon, I found another message waiting on my phone. Rebecca. Coffee, 6:15. Palmer's on 8th. Public place, no wine, terrible lighting. Me. Is the terrible lighting a precaution? 3 dots appeared, vanished, then returned. Rebecca. It's the only coffee shop where Derek doesn't know the staff. Me. I accept these highly professional terms. Palmer's had fluorescent lights, sticky tables, and coffee that tasted vaguely of burned rope. Rebecca was already in a corner booth when I arrived. She had removed her jacket but still looked like she was about to conduct a disciplinary hearing. I slid in across from her. You weren't exaggerating about the coffee. I needed one thing tonight, to be easy to resist. My eyes lifted to hers. A faint flush touched her cheeks. That sounded less reckless in my head. I liked how it sounded out here. Mason. Rebecca. She wrapped both hands around her paper cup. I spoke to HR. That erased my smile. About us? About a hypothetical situation involving 2 employees who unknowingly went on one date. And this hypothetical man was devastatingly charming? He was described as moderately tolerable. Cruel but fair. Her mouth twitched, then she grew serious again. Company policy doesn't forbid relationships. It does forbid a romantic relationship where one person directly controls the other's pay, assignments, or evaluations. So once the promotion takes effect, we have a problem. We have a choice. The word landed differently. Rebecca pulled a folded organizational chart from her bag and set it between us. One reporting line had been marked in blue. The Calder role was placed under creative because that's how the previous director structured it. But most of the work is brand strategy. It could report to Malcolm Price instead. Malcolm headed strategy. He was fair, experienced, and obsessed with marathon running, to a degree that made every meeting feel like cardio. Could, I repeated. HR agrees it makes operational sense. Malcolm does too. I studied her. You already talked to him? I asked whether he'd be interested in supervising the position. I did not tell him. Why? And if I report to Malcolm? I won't set your salary, assign your projects, or conduct your reviews. You'd still outrank me. I outrank nearly everyone in the building. It's a character flaw. I smiled, but she didn't. This only works if we disclose the relationship, she continued, which means we'd have to decide there is a relationship worth disclosing. The noise of the coffee shop receded. She had come prepared with policy, reporting structures, and an ethical route forward. But beneath all that careful planning was a much simpler truth. She wanted a second date. I leaned closer. Is that what you want? Rebecca held my gaze. I'm sitting in a coffee shop that serves liquid charcoal and voluntarily discussing my private life with HR. What do you think? I think I'd like to hear you say it. Her eyes narrowed. You enjoy making me uncomfortable. Only when you're hiding behind management language? For a moment, I thought she might retreat. Instead, Rebecca reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Every clever response left me. I want to see you again, she said. Not as your boss. Not because Derek thinks we'd be good together. I want another date because I spent most of Sunday wishing Saturday hadn't ended. Her thumb moved once against my knuckles. I spent most of Sunday considering homicide, I said. Derek? Obviously. But I also wished Saturday hadn't ended. Relief softened her face. The reassignment won't be official until Friday, she said. Until then, nothing changes. Friday night. What about it? Second date. You haven't asked where. I know exactly where. Friday evening, I took Rebecca to Lennox Salvage, an architectural reclamation warehouse that stayed open late once a month and hosted food trucks in its courtyard. She stopped just inside the entrance, surrounded by antique doors, brass fixtures, and shelves of mismatched stained glass. You remembered I like old hardware stores. I pay attention. I've noticed. Without her office armor, she seemed lighter. She wore jeans, ankle boots, and a cream sweater that made it difficult to maintain a respectful distance. We wandered for an hour. Rebecca found a porcelain drawer pull-shaped like a fox. I bought it for her despite her objections. You can't buy me gifts, she said as we stepped into the courtyard. It costs $6. Today it's a drawer pull, tomorrow it's a yacht. Fine, you can buy the tacos. Romance is alive. We ate beneath strings of lights while a guitarist played near the gate. There was no talk of reporting lines or company policy. She told me about studying design because her father believed art was impractical. I told her I still kept my grandfather's broken pocket watch because he'd promised we would fix it together. When the warehouse began closing, neither of us hurried toward the exit. At her car, Rebecca turned the little fox-shaped handle in her fingers. Everything is official, she said. You report to Malcolm as of today. I saw the email, so I'm not your boss. You'll always be terrifying. Good. She stepped closer. This time there was no cab waiting and no promotions suspended between us. I touched her cheek, giving her every chance to change her mind. She didn't. Rebecca curled one hand into the front of my jacket and kissed me. It was warm, deliberate, and nothing like the cautious woman who had spent the week drawing boundaries. I drew her closer, and she made a soft sound against my mouth that nearly erased every sensible thought I'd ever had. When we finally separated, her forehead rested against mine. I've wanted to do that since the restaurant, she whispered. You hit it well. I did not. A voice behind us said my name. We turned. Jenna Price from the executive team stood 10 feet away, car keys in hand, staring at Rebecca's fingers still curled in my jacket. Malcolm Price's wife. Jenna Price looked from me to Rebecca, then down at Rebecca's hand gripping my jacket. Well, she said, that explains the organizational restructuring Malcolm couldn't stop talking about. Rebecca released me, but she didn't step away. The change was reviewed by HR, she said calmly. Mason's promotion was approved before our first date, and the disclosure paperwork was filed this afternoon. Jenna blinked. You already told HR? Yes. And Malcolm? He knows Mason's position was reassigned to him. He doesn't know about us yet. Technically, neither did I until 30 seconds ago. I cleared my throat. For what it's worth, this is our second date. Jenna glanced at the dark warehouse behind us. You brought the creative director to a building full of rusty hinges? She likes rusty hinges. Rebecca held up the porcelain fox. He also bought me this. Jenna examined it. Scandalous. The tension broke. Rebecca's shoulders lowered and Jenna smiled. I'm not interested in causing trouble, Jenna said. But Malcolm should hear it from you before we all end up at the same dinner. We'll tell him Monday, Rebecca replied. Jenna nodded, then pointed at us with her keys. One piece of unsolicited advice. People may believe the promotion came first, but they'll still talk. Don't let their version of events become more important than yours. She walked toward her car, leaving us beneath the courtyard lights. I looked at Rebecca. That could have gone worse. Yes. Did you think she was going to drag us before the board? No. You're lying. I was deciding whether I could fit into the trunk of your car. I laughed, but she didn't join me. Her gaze had shifted toward the parking lot. The ease between us was gone. Rebecca, we should leave. Are you regretting the kiss? Her eyes snapped back to mine. No. Good, because I'm planning to think about it constantly. That earned the smallest smile. I took her hand. What are you regretting? Getting caught. The word hit harder than I expected. I released her. Rebecca immediately noticed. That came out wrong. Did it? Mason, I'm not ashamed of you. But you'd prefer no one see us. I'd prefer you not spend the next 6 months hearing that you were promoted because you slept with me. My jaw tightened. We haven't slept together. You know that won't matter. So what happens now? We only meet in abandoned warehouses? Architectural salvage stores. Right. Much more dignified. She folded her arms. I'm trying to protect your career. You don't get to decide what I'm willing to risk. This isn't about control. You brought an annotated reporting chart to our second conversation. Our second conversation involved corporate ethics. You used a blue highlighter. It was color-coded. Despite myself, I laughed. Rebecca exhaled, some of her defensiveness fading. I'm bad at this. At dating? At letting things be uncertain. That admission was so quiet I almost missed it. I stepped closer again. Then let's make one thing certain. I want this. She studied my face. Even if people talk? Do you? That isn't fair. It's exactly fair. For several seconds, the only sounds were distant traffic and the warehouse staff stacking metal chairs. Then Rebecca reached for my hand. Yes, she said. I want this. Good. But I reserve the right to panic in an organized manner. I'll buy you a binder. With dividers? I'm not made of money. She smiled, and this time the warmth reached her eyes. I kissed her again, briefly, softly, not because we'd been caught, but because we'd decided not to run. Malcolm took the news on Monday with less concern than he'd shown when the office stopped stocking his preferred electrolyte packets. He called me and Rebecca into his office, listened to the timeline, then leaned back in his chair. HR signed off? Yes, Rebecca said. Mason's compensation and reviews come through me? Yes. No romantic arguments during my client meetings? I frowned. Was that a realistic concern? Malcolm looked at Rebecca. She once debated a font choice for 45 minutes. It was inappropriate for the brand. It was Helvetica. Exactly. He turned to me. Good luck. By lunchtime, 3 people knew. By Wednesday, half the floor knew. No one confronted me directly, but conversations paused when Rebecca passed. Someone left a miniature ladder on my desk with a note that read, "For the corporate climb." I threw it away before she saw it. She saw it anyway. That evening, she canceled our dinner by text. Rebecca. Long day. Can we reschedule? I stared at the message, then looked through the glass wall of her office. She was sitting alone, laptop closed, staring at nothing. I walked in and shut the door. Long day? I asked. Her eyes moved to me. You shouldn't be in here with the door closed. That's not an answer. I have work. Your laptop isn't on. Her expression sharpened. Go home, Mason. No. I'm still a senior executive, and I don't report to you. That doesn't mean you can ignore a reasonable request. It isn't reasonable. You saw the ladder, decided everyone thinks I'm a fraud, and canceled our date so you could martyr yourself alone. I am not martyring myself. You're doing it very efficiently. She stood. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Us arguing? You being diminished because of me. I stepped around the desk. Do you know what actually diminishes me? Acting as if I'm not capable of choosing my own relationship. The anger in her face faltered. I've worked hard for this, I continued. The promotion and you. I won't let gossip take either one. You didn't work for me. Not professionally. Her lips parted. I noticed you long before Derek set us up, I said. I noticed you stayed late to help junior staff fix presentations you could have rejected. I noticed you take the stairs when you're upset and that you carry two pens because someone always needs one. I wanted you when wanting you seemed completely useless. Rebecca went very still. That's why I'm here, I said. Not because you moved a line on an organizational chart. Because when you're not busy managing every possible disaster, you're funny and stubborn and terrible at sharing dessert. I gave you half the tiramisu. You measured it with your spoon. It was an equal division. I took another step until barely any space remained between us. Don't cancel because someone left a stupid toy on my desk. Her voice softened. What if this hurts you? Then stand next to me while it hurts. Something in her expression broke open. Rebecca touched my face with both hands and kissed me. It wasn't cautious this time. She backed me against the edge of her desk and I pulled her close, feeling the quick beat of her heart against my chest. When she finally drew away, we were both breathing harder. That was extremely inappropriate for the workplace, I murmured. Yes. Should we discuss it over dinner? She smiled against my mouth. Give me 5 minutes. We ate takeout on the floor of my grandfather's garage because I'd promised to show her the walnut desk I was restoring. Rebecca sat cross-legged beside me, sleeves pushed to her elbows, carefully applying oil to one of the drawers. You're going against the grain, I said. She looked horrified. I am not. I placed my hand over hers and guided the cloth along the wood. Like this. You brought me here under false pretenses. I was promised dinner. You ate 2 dumplings. I'm under tremendous stress. I kept my hand over hers even after she had the motion right. The garage was quiet and smelled of cedar, dust, and rain. Her shoulder rested against mine. My last relationship lasted 3 years, she said suddenly. He didn't like people knowing we were together either. I turned toward her. He said my job intimidated his friends. I thought keeping things separate would make it easier. She watched the wood darken beneath the oil. Eventually, I realized he liked me best when no one else could see me. I'm not him. I know. She intertwined her fingers with mine. That's why this scares me more. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I don't want to hide you, I said. Rebecca leaned her head against my shoulder. Then don't. Her phone chimed on the workbench. She ignored it at first. When it chimed again, she sighed and reached for it. I felt her body stiffen. What is it? Rebecca turned the screen toward me. The email subject read, Final Interview, European Regional Director, London. I looked at her. She swallowed. I applied 6 months ago. I applied 6 months ago. Rebecca held the phone between us as if it might detonate. The London position had been discussed around the office for nearly a year. It was one of the largest roles in the company. Oversight of 4 European teams, major international clients, and a seat on the Global Leadership Council. It was also 4,000 miles away. When is the interview? I asked. Next Thursday. And if you get it? I'd have to relocate within a month. The garage suddenly felt too small. Rebecca set the phone face down on the workbench. I didn't expect to make the final round. You're excellent at your job. That's very supportive and extremely inconvenient. I tried to smile. I have my moments. She stood and paced to the shelves. I applied after the company passed me over for the national director role. I thought if I was going to keep proving myself, I might as well do it somewhere new. You don't have to justify applying. I know. Do you? She turned. You're looking at me like you did something wrong, I said. You applied before our first date. Before you knew Derek was plotting against us. That doesn't make this easier. No. The words sat between us. I wanted to tell her not to go. The selfish part of me wanted her to delete the email, stay exactly where she was, and let this new thing between us grow without an ocean in the middle of it. But I remembered the way she'd looked when she said her former boyfriend preferred her invisible. I refused to become another man who needed her smaller. You should do the interview, I said. Rebecca's gaze searched mine. You mean that? I mean you shouldn't give up something you've wanted because we're afraid of what might happen. We? I'm terrified. Her expression softened. I walked over and took both her hands. But if you don't interview and this ends someday, that's encouraging. Let me finish. She pressed her lips together. If you turn it down because of me, there's a chance you'll resent me. And there's a chance I'll always wonder whether you stayed because you wanted us or because you were afraid to test us. So what are you saying? Take the interview. Then if they offer you the job, we decide what happens next. We decide together. Rebecca stared down at our joined hands. That sounds suspiciously like a relationship, she said. It does. Are you asking me to be your girlfriend in your grandfather's garage while I'm covered in furniture oil? I was going to arrange candles, but that seems unsafe. Her laugh was unsteady. I touched her cheek. I'm asking whether this is real enough that neither of us makes the next decision alone. She leaned into my palm. Yes, she whispered. It is. Then she kissed me with her oil-stained hands resting against my chest. Derek learned about us the next morning, not from gossip, not from HR. He walked into my kitchen at 8:15 without knocking and found Rebecca wearing my shirt, standing barefoot at the stove. I was beside her attempting to rescue a pan of eggs. Derek stopped in the doorway. Rebecca looked over her shoulder. You own a doorbell. I also own a key. He stared at her, then at me. That is Mason's shirt. You've always been observant. He slowly set a cardboard tray of coffees on the counter. Did my plan actually work? Your plan nearly caused a compliance investigation, I said. But it worked. The eggs aren't working, Rebecca said. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. I grabbed the pan while she opened a window. Derek watched us move around each other with an expression of increasing delight. This is the greatest thing I've ever done. You took 2 people to dinner, Rebecca said. I created love. The room went still. Derek seemed to realize he'd said too much. Rebecca's eyes met mine across the kitchen. Something warm and frightened passed between us. I turned off the burner. You created burned eggs. Derek wisely accepted the change of subject, but the word remained. Love. Too early perhaps, too large for a relationship that had existed for less than 2 weeks. Still, I carried it with me all day. The night before Rebecca's interview, I found her sitting on the floor of her apartment surrounded by index cards. Tell me those aren't color-coded, I said. She looked up. Blue is market expansion. Yellow is team integration. Pink is financial growth. And green? Questions they might ask specifically to ruin my life. I sat beside her and picked up a green card. How would you address declining retention across culturally distinct regional teams? Rebecca began answering immediately. I interrupted after 30 seconds. Wrong. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me? You're giving them the polished answer. It's an interview. They already know you're polished. Tell them what you actually believe. What I actually believe is that leaders talk about culture when they mean morale and talk about morale when they mean money. Say that. I can't say that. You can say anything if you put a graph behind it. She laughed and shoved my shoulder. For the next 2 hours, I challenged every rehearsed answer until she stopped sounding like a corporate statement and started sounding like herself. Eventually, she lay back on the rug. I hate you, she said. I stretched out beside her. Your attraction to me is very confusing. It's your worst quality. Not my shirts? The buttons remain under strain. She reached over and undid the top one. My breath caught. Rebecca smiled. Better. I rolled onto my side. Are you trying to distract your interview coach? Yes. Unethical. You don't report to me. She pulled me down and kissed me. The cards scattered beneath us as I slid one hand into her hair. Her nervous energy softened into something slower and deeper. When we parted, she kept her forehead against mine. What if I get it? She asked. Then I'll be proud of you. What if getting it cost me this? I brushed my thumb over her cheek. You're not losing me tomorrow. You can't promise that. I can promise not to disappear because life got complicated. Rebecca closed her eyes. I'm not good at needing people, she said. You don't need me. Her eyes opened. You choose me, I said. There's a difference. She kissed me again, more gently this time. I choose you. She whispered. The interview lasted 3 hours. Rebecca didn't call afterward. At 6, I went to her apartment and found her on the balcony with 2 glasses of wine. That bad? I asked. That good. I joined her at the railing. They asked when I could start, she said. That's promising. It felt like they'd already decided. Fear moved through me, sharp and immediate, but I took the glass she offered. 2 terrifyingly competent executives, I said. She tapped her glass against mine. And their moderately tolerable boyfriends. We drank beneath the city lights. 2 days later, the offer arrived. Rebecca came to my apartment with the printed letter folded in her bag. She didn't sit. They want an answer by Monday. What do you want? I want the job. The honesty hurt, but not as much as a lie would have. And I want you, she added. I rose from the couch. She looked furious with herself. This would be easier if one of those things mattered less. Maybe neither has to. Long distance is hard. So are you. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be. She gave me a watery laugh, then covered her face. I pulled her hands away and held them. Mason, I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. What if we fail? Then we fail after trying, not because we were too scared to start. Her eyes filled. I had planned to wait before saying it. I wanted a better setting, better timing, and some certainty that the words wouldn't sound like leverage. But love rarely arrived when the room was ready for it. I love you, I said, and I'm not saying that to make you stay. Rebecca went perfectly still. I'm saying it because you should know you're loved when you go. A tear slipped down her cheek. She stepped into me, gripping the back of my shirt. I love you too, she said against my chest. That's why leaving feels impossible. I held her until impossible became simply painful. On Monday morning, she accepted the London position. By noon, the entire company knew. At 3, Malcolm called me into his office and shut the door. The Calder account is opening its European headquarters, he said. They want one of our people in London for the launch. My heart kicked hard. How long? 8 months. He slid a folder across the desk. Rebecca is not involved in the selection, he said, and if you want it, you'll have to beat 3 other candidates. I looked down at the folder Malcolm had pushed across his desk. You knew Rebecca and I were together when you selected the candidates? Yes. And that she's moving to London? Yes. Then how is this not going to look like I'm following her? Malcolm leaned back. That depends. Are you? I didn't answer immediately. The Calder account needs someone who understands its history, he continued. You built the campaign that won them. You also happen to be dating someone who will live in the same city. Both things can be true. Who makes the decision? 3 Calder executives and our global accounts director. Rebecca won't see your proposal or attend the interviews. I opened the folder. The assignment would be the biggest challenge of my career. If I succeeded, I'd gain international experience that normally took years to earn. When do I present? Friday. That gave me 4 days. Rebecca's apartment was filled with moving boxes when I arrived that evening. She stood in the middle of the living room holding 2 coffee makers. Which one? She asked. The silver one. That was fast. The black one makes coffee that tastes like regret. It was expensive. Expensive regret. She placed the silver machine in the shipping box. What did Malcolm want? I handed her the folder. Rebecca read the first page, then looked up sharply. Calder is sending someone to London? For 8 months. And you're a candidate? One of 4. The surprise on her face shifted into guarded concern. Did Malcolm choose you because of me? No, and you're barred from the selection process. Good. That sounded almost disappointed. I'm trying to decide whether I should kiss you or interrogate you. We could alternate. She ignored that. If I weren't moving to London, would you want this assignment? I'd ask myself the same question all afternoon. Yes, I said. It's Calder. I helped build the account and I want to see the work through. Rebecca searched my face. You're sure? I'm not abandoning my career to follow you. I'm applying for something I earned that also happens to put me near the woman I love. Her shoulders relaxed. Near, she repeated. We'll need boundaries, separate offices, independent reporting structures. Of course. Also, I've seen how you divide tiramisu. Separate apartments may be necessary. She threw a roll of packing tape at me. I caught it, crossed the room, and wrapped my arms around her. You don't have to win this for us, she said against my chest. I know. And if someone else gets it, we'll still try. I know. She pulled back. I mean it. No disappearing because life gets complicated. I smiled at the familiar words. You remembered. I pay attention. Then she kissed me, surrounded by boxes holding the life she'd built before me. For the next 4 nights, she helped me practice my presentation. I helped her pack. We argued over market forecasts, ate dinner from cartons, and fell asleep on her couch beneath a blanket neither of us remembered buying. On Friday morning, she straightened my tie. You're going against the grain, I said. That only applies to wood. It feels relevant. She smoothed my collar. Go get the job, Mason. Because you want me in London? Rebecca looked into my eyes. Because you're the best person for it. My presentation lasted 90 minutes. The Calder executives challenged every assumption I made. The global director asked how I'd enter a new market without weakening the brand. Someone questioned whether I had enough management experience. I answered without pretending to know everything. When it ended, Malcolm shook my hand but gave nothing away. Rebecca flew to London the next morning. At the airport, we stood beside security holding each other while irritated travelers moved around us. No dramatic promises, she said. Fine. No saying we'll call every hour. I have meetings. No pretending this won't be difficult. It will be awful. Her eyes shone. Good. We agree. I touched my forehead to hers. Call me when you land. That's a promise. We kissed once, then again because once was impossible. I watched her disappear through security. For the first time since Derek's setup, I wondered whether wanting each other would be enough. My phone rang before I reached the parking garage. It was Malcolm. You got it, he said. I stopped walking. The panel chose you unanimously. 8 months, beginning in 3 weeks. I leaned against a concrete pillar and laughed. Was that a yes? Malcolm asked. Yes. I told Rebecca on our first video call after she landed. For 3 seconds, she simply stared at me. Then she screamed loudly enough that one of her new neighbors knocked on the wall. You got it? I got it. She covered her mouth, laughing and crying at the same time. You're coming to London. In 3 weeks. Rebecca pressed her hand to the screen. I placed mine against it from 4,000 miles away. For the record, she said, I was prepared to make long-distance work. So was I. But this is better. Much. Separate apartments? I pretended to consider it. For at least a respectable amount of time. We lasted 6 weeks. Life in London wasn't effortless. Rebecca worked longer hours than she expected. The Calder launch consumed most of my days. We still had to be cautious about professional overlap, and there were evenings when we ate dinner at midnight while answering emails from opposite ends of the couch. But there were mornings when we walked along the Thames before the city fully woke. Sundays when we wandered markets and bought useless antique hardware. Rainy nights when she danced with me badly in our kitchen, insisting my ballroom lessons had been fraudulent. Most importantly, neither of us became smaller. Rebecca built her European team without apologizing for her authority. I launched Calder in 3 countries, and when my 8-month assignment ended, the company offered me a permanent global creative position reporting to New York. I didn't accept immediately. I took the offer home and placed it in front of her. What do you want? She asked. To stay. For me? For the work, for the city. I took her hand. And for you. All 3. Rebecca smiled. Then stay. A year after our blind date, the walnut desk from my grandfather's garage finally arrived at our flat. We carried it upstairs together, nearly dropped it twice, and argued about where it belonged. By the window, she said. The light could damage the finish. You sound 90. You bought 6 different wood oils last month. Those were necessary. While she stood at the window assessing the light, I replaced the center drawer's plain brass pull with the little porcelain fox I'd bought on our second date. Inside the drawer, I placed a ring. When Rebecca opened it, she didn't speak. She turned slowly, one hand covering her mouth. I lowered myself onto one knee. "You've got to be kidding," she whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "That was also the first thing you said on our blind date. And somehow you stayed." "I'm stubborn. Moderately tolerable. Rebecca Sloan, will you marry me?" She dropped to her knees in front of me. "Yes." I barely managed to put the ring on before she kissed me. By the following spring, we were married in the courtyard of Lennox Salvage beneath the same strings of lights where Jenna had caught us. Malcolm gave a speech about ethical reporting structures. Derek took full credit for the marriage. And when Rebecca and I danced, she rested her cheek against mine while rain tapped softly on the glass roof above us. For once, neither of us worried about what came next. We had chosen each other without asking the other to give up who they were. And that turned out to be the kind of love worth crossing an ocean for. What would you have done if your blind date had looked up and turned out to be your boss? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell me your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.